Hi guys, so today I wanted to talk a little bit about how to equalize, compress, gate, and de-ess your microphone in the GoXLR app for the first time. Now, the cool thing is this actually applies to any equalizer you'd have in the future. It might be 15 bands, it might be 6 bands, it might be 3, but all of this is definitely applicable throughout. Just want to give people kind of an idea of kind of where to start in doing this. By now, you should have chosen your mic type, so condenser or dynamic. Condenser if you need phantom power, dynamic if you do not. We're going to use the advanced options for all of these here. And so there's a method that I really like with equalizing your voice where it's pretty simple. You just raise and lower your volume, your slider essentially as you're going ahead and you're just talking about different things. Doesn't matter if you don't have something to talk about. Grab a news article, grab your favorite new piece of tech, and like go through their product specs page or whatever, and just read through and go up and down. Now the 31.5 hertz and 16k hertz sliders essentially act as a low pass and a high pass, so you probably won't hear a whole lot of difference in those two different frequencies. But let's go ahead. I'm going to do my best to kind of talk my way through. Now, there is something that I want to say here. Everybody's voice is different, and what you want to convey on stream is also different. For example, I like having a little bit more of a radio style-y voice, whereas you might want something a little bit more natural and less synthesized. That's totally fine, totally up to you. It's all about what you hear in your voice. This is also a little bit like tuning a guitar. If we're going to go all the way through this, we'd actually go through equalizer, compressor, gate, de-esser twice. Because it's like if you've ever tuned a guitar before, you go ahead, you change your strings, and by the time you tighten the first one, you get it to that perfect E. And by the time you tighten the rest, that E1 is out of tune. And because you changed the rest, the A is, and you kind of have to go through a second time to make sure that everything is kind of staying in the right key. Same thing here. After we add a compressor and a de-esser, this EQ might change a little bit on us. So we might want to go through again and reapply that. And by changing that EQ with the de-esser and the gate, we might want to change how the compressor sounds. So this is definitely just as much art as it is science, but there definitely are some good best practices for equalizing your voice. So let's go ahead. We're going to start at the 63 hertz. For a male voice, this is very much where like the bass really starts to hit. So all the way up here, you can definitely hear like kind of more fullness, whereas all the way down here, definitely a little less. This is more at the bottom of my voice. So I like having my voice a little bassier. So I'm going to start, and I'm going to set it at about a 3. I'm going to do the same thing with 125. This is very much that it's almost muddy at first with how it goes. And then I'm going to go all the way back down to -9. I don't like really anything down here. I do like it up here somewhere. So I don't know. We'll just keep it at a 4, I think. 250 hertz, same thing, going all the way up and all the way down. So the 250 and 500 hertz for male vocals are kind of the radio broadcast frequencies. These are probably the two that determine if you're going to go for a more natural or a more synthesized voice. If you want something a little more synthesized, you'll probably drop down below 0. If you want something more natural, you'll probably jump up here a little bit more. It's totally up to you. And again, that's just generally speaking, your voice could be totally different. Now we're going to do the 500 hertz. Now the 500 hertz is the cheater frequency. If you ever hear somebody who probably has a lot of nice audio equipment, but they don't actually know how to use it, they probably do this. They slam the bass up, they slam 500 hertz down, and then they keep the high part flat. I can think of a few streamers that do this. This is like the Howard Stern, the idea is that Howard Stern used to do this, except he's doing it through tens of thousands of dollars worth of gear. And, his voice is the like penultimate radio voice that we'll probably ever have. So, you could do it a little bit. I cheat a little bit. I put it down to -2. And I kind of like that. Now we're going to go up and do some of the highs. So the 1K hertz is kind of a little bit more of the nasally part of my voice. See if when I have it all the way up here, you can kind of hear that part of my voice. Whereas if I go all the way down here, it's definitely a bit kind of underwatery, I guess, is kind of goes. So we kind of go back up and down. And I don't know. I kind of like it right about here. I also know I've done this enough time to know that when I add a compressor, it's going to make my voice a little bit louder and all that stuff. Now let's go to the 2K. This is where we're going to start to get into some of like the shushes, shush, 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 shush. So I'm going to kind of go backing up and down. Remember that if your S's seem harsh, but you like the sound of everything else, we're going to go and add a de-esser later on. So don't be afraid to overcommit on these frequencies because the de-esser is going to mellow those out quite a bit. Maybe right about there. All right, let's go to 4K. This is so much more of the susses. And, you know, whatever. I kind of like it up here again as well. And then 8K, this is the other part of the S's. Susses. I definitely think I like it up here. And then the 16K is, again, that high pass. So we don't really know what's going on there. And that's it. Like that's a what? It took us 2 minutes to create our first EQ. And this one's a little bit different than the one that I actually normally use. Who knows if this is the one I'll actually end up using overall. Let's talk about the compressor. So the compressor is like a math equation. Essentially what it says is when the volume of my voice goes above this threshold, compress it at this ratio. So, and right now it's saying when it goes above 0 dB, which is clipping, compress it at a ratio of 4:1. Now, since I'm clipping, essentially this is like having a compressor off. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drop the threshold, and I like to keep my compressor at like 4:1. If you want something more compressed or you're way loud, maybe do 8:1. Let's make a compressor for 8:1 this time. And I'm going to bring it way down. I'm going to make it really compressed for this one. Now you notice is that I got a bit quieter. I dropped from about -7 to -10 decibels all the way down to about -20 decibels. I'm monitoring this in OBS. So I'm going to use my makeup gain to get me back to the level that I want to be at. Right now that I'm there, this looks right about where I want to be. Hello, hey, check 1, check 2, hey. Yeah, so pretty cool. I just set the compressor, and like again, this is a little bit higher than if you want again something more natural, you would go 8:1. If you want it like super synthesized, bring it all the way up to 64 for all I care. Drop that threshold down, bring that makeup gain up. You can do that. You can definitely tell because that threshold is now so low. Some of the room noise behind me got caught in that. So but it does mean when I go like this, I really can't clip ever. And so some people like that. I like going down to like 8:1 is probably the highest I would go. Bring that back. And, you know, I usually sit around like the 60 to 75%. Again, I like my voice a little bit more synthesized. And that's it. Not bad, right? Pretty easy, pretty straightforward. Looks like I'm a little high, so I'm going to bring that makeup gain back down. So I'm I want to sit at like -10 decibels. It's right on the line of where that clipping is by default, that the red part is by default in OBS. Let's do the gate. So right now you can hear room noise behind me, right? So with the gate, there's really only 3 parameters that matter: your threshold, attack, and release. What the threshold is just like in compressor. The threshold is what determines when the gate opens and closes. When your voice goes above the gate, it opens. When it goes below the gate, it closes. The attack determines how fast that gate opens. So when you go above it, generally speaking, for spoken word, you want that as low as possible always. There are some cases for music where you might want it a little bit longer. And then for the release, this is how long after you stop talking, essentially, or take a break in your sentence, how long until that gate closes. The longer you have that gate, the longer it takes to close. So I'm going to put the gate closed like 600 milliseconds. So that's over half a second. And I'm going to talk. And you can hear that gate slowly kind of flicker out over about half a second. I'm going to put it down at 10% for 10 milliseconds. And you'll notice it's actually cutting off my voice. And it's cutting off my voice because my threshold is too high. That whenever I'm not speaking at the loudest, after 10 milliseconds, it's boom, it's just gone. It's cut that out. And the release is too fast that it doesn't let me finish my words. I find I'm a little bit of a faster speaker and I don't really trail off a whole lot. So I can have a little bit of a faster release. I normally sit at about 100 milliseconds. The nice thing about the faster release is that if there is any room noise, especially if you have like a big hollow room, wood floors, it's going to get rid of that faster. At the same time, it can cut off the end of your words. The 200 milliseconds is, I think, what we have as default. And it's a really good kind of higher end of medium for using that. And so now you'll notice you don't hear room noise behind me. You do hear a little bit of a harsh S yet left, because if you remember from the equalizer, we've got quite a bit on the 2, 4, and 8K hertz, which are where all of our S's and shushes all live. But that's how we set a gate. No more background noise, which is really nice. So let's go ahead and add a de-esser. We're just going to bring that up until it sounds good. I mean, right there, I'm at 27 and boom, that sounds good. Some people, you might have really harsh S's. You might need to be all the way up here. Sa, 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 sa. Whereas all the way down here is sa, 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 sa. I think I might kind of sit right here around 20. Sa, sa, sa. There's definitely a sus there. You want susses to be there. You want your S's to be there. It needs to be there. And there's so many streamers out there who definitely underemphasize their highs and overemphasize their lows because they aren't, A, they're not used to hearing their voice. B, they are like, well, radio DJs have these big, deep voices, so I need to too. But in actuality, you need some sort of healthy balance there. You don't want to totally one-side your equalizer. So that's it. We've gone from having no EQ, no compressor, no gate, no de-esser, and in the matter of 12 minutes, have created our own little signal chain in the GoXLR app so that we can sound better on stream. This is one of the key features of what makes it's not just enough to have a nice preamp and a nice microphone. You also want to have some effects behind it to really bring out the best parts of your voice and maybe lower the worst parts of your voice. And that's totally cool. That's totally fine. So thank you guys for watching. I hope this was helpful. I will have more tutorials coming about how to configure your mixer, your effects, your sampler routing, and all that stuff later on.